So today we do have 4 mousepads to check out, all playing part of a roundup. These are pads that I've been going back and forth to since having them all in my collection. First off is going to be the TentaX. It has a monochromatic artwork that they call the last stand. It's pretty neat and I personally enjoy it, especially with the more worn-in effect that the textured surface gives it, more so resembling an aqua control surface. It is uncoated and dry with a very textured rough design, but I personally haven't had any issues where it gets irritating on my skin. But if you have very low sense and do have more erratic swipes, it can definitely cause more friction and irritations. The glide itself is very solid. Now initially on the website they have stated that it is a surface with a high initial friction, medium dynamic friction and a low stopping power, but in my experience it is quite a bit different. And for the better considering the base is announced as a pour-on-like, which is definitely not going to be pour-on, but to me it smells like polyurethane. But it's also a very soft version of it. Now like I've said, my experiences with it have been different. Very positive surprisingly. Now realistically it does have more of a low initial friction, dynamic friction and stopping power. So it does feel like a faster pad than advertised, which in my personal opinion is a very good thing. And because of this super soft base, expressing downward force will create a more friction-filled experience. Now I just can't speak on the longevity of the base if it were to start warping or stretching out with more intensive use. In the last over a month it's held up pretty good though across all the games that I've played. It just feels like a safe option, but you can't go wrong with it. Now up next is going to be the InfinityMice Ruin. The surface feels like a throwback to the original SpeedPad, which I was a massive fan of. It feels like a wetsuit with a lot of smoothness, elasticity and an extremely thin weave, creating a more balanced speed experience. Now the Ruin is one of their limited edition pads, which have these unique designs, and this is one of my more favorite ones coming from the brand, showcasing, as the name suggests, a city in ruin, which what seems to be a mecha as the cause of the damages. It's pretty cool stuff. Now the base on the other hand had me coming back to the last stand, also being a very soft polyurethane but not as soft. The stretchiness is still very insane, and just like the last stand, when you express more downward force, the friction will become a decent amount more. Now over my time of use it has also held up pretty well. It's one of the more unique pads out there in the speed category. It's also just not a pad you could go wrong with. And then we have the 2 newer cloth pads from Padsmith. First is going to be the Crucible. Probably one of the pads I was the most excited for in this year, as I'm a big fan of the brand and the team. Now unfortunately the Crucible did not meet my expectations. It is an incredibly unique pad. Literally nothing I've ever experienced with their own weave, which has these slight protruding bumps for more textured feedback. Now the base is made of a closed cell polyurethane, which I do enjoy. It's quite a bit of a denser experience, but still has a little bit of plush to it for those who prefer the extra sense of comfort. Now the thing is, the pad is branded as a speed pad, which isn't entirely true. It's on the smoother balance spectrum, but over the months I've used it, it has become quite a bit slower. Initially the pad was very nice to use with fuller skates, but some of my more favoured mice did have troubles with sensor skipping, like the Lamzu Tachi, the Vaxi XES and very rare occasions now with the Vansa Akitsu. But I do feel in its current state it is not a mousepad I can recommend easily considering the issues, which is genuinely unfortunate considering how well I performed on it with the right peripherals and the setup. And also speaking of the design, this is just next level. So hopefully we can see the Crucible V2 outshine all the issues and we can see it come back just better than ever. Now lastly is going to be the Temple of Dreams. This was one of my more enjoyed pads in this roundup. The surface feels completely flat and smooth regardless of which skates are used, also being very unique. The base makes use of a soft polyurethane, but it is a thicker one than the other pads in the roundup at 4mm. But even so it's still on the denser side with a little bit of plush. So of course giving better comfort but allowing way more friction when even more downward force is applied to it. It is the brand's improved version of the original control, being a very accurate representation of it. I've come to enjoy this pad specifically on tack shooters more so than tracking heavy games, considering there is a fair amount of dynamic friction and stopping power. Now the initial friction in my experience is a bit lower, making it easier to get into the glide movement. Now this is easily one of the better control pads that I have come across so far, and can definitely recommend this if you're looking for just a tack shooter specific mousepad. But that about wraps it up for the roundup. Thanks so much for watching guys, take care and peace.